this crap, man. I feel like this is kind of in our
Way. Here. That's good right there. I will
Is that
throw
good?
my foot up there, yes.
Okay. Whoa. Oh, I think we may need to replug this in, but we'll see if it...
Oh,
No, it's good.
okay.
Remember the slow motion, like this thing falling
Oh, yeah.
and it almost knocked
That was pretty amazing. Put my bell over here, I guess. Oh, there we go.
All right.
All right. And we're
I don't remember which music is what.
I think it's just A.
I don't think so. I think and should I play right now?
Yeah,
just
let's
for.
try.
This is turned down.
It is B.
So this is our starting one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then A is the ending music, the outro music.
Yeah.
And then what is?
I don't think we.
And
use
then
the
we
other
have
one.
like applause and stuff like that
Yeah.
that we just do for fun.
Yeah.
Laugh track, I think we have.
Yes. As one does.
Oh man. Well, should we just start in the middle of the music?
No, let's start the music. How did we start it over?
I think you just hit it again.
Oh, well then just hit it again and
All right.
start recording.
I don't remember how to record, so.
There's a button.
All right. That was a little weird.
A little weird.
A little weird for season 3. Hello and welcome to the Moon Underwater. I'm Kelly Daniels.
I'm Steve Jones.
And we're speaking a little earlier than the intro music than we usually do, so I'll just kind of turn it down. We have not podcasted together for a couple of months.
Didn't know if we were gonna break the news to everybody that we've been off.
Yeah, I wonder
They don't
about.
really notice.
Yeah, because for them, through the magic of scheduling, it's just a seamless every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Because
But
everybody else needs a 3-month break every year too. I mean, I don't know who doesn't get one of those.
Yeah,
so
right.
We took our 3-month break.
We took our 3-month break.
Was it really
and
3 months or was it 2?
2?
All right.
But anyway,
Felt like 3, buddy.
it's good to see you again. Relatively.
You as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Thanks.
so we're going to start season 3 with.
Can I
one
set
of-
the scene here?
Please
Because I
do.
feel like we're breaking. There's a movie rule that used to be a rule that everybody breaks now. It's the 180-degree rule.
Oh.
So you would never have a shot behind me facing you,
Yeah.
and then behind you facing me. That breaks the 180-degree rule. It confuses the audience, and I think they probably have made amendments to this over the years. We are breaking that rule right now. Because we're shooting. Normally we sit over there. The old man is next to us. There's not an old guy at the bar. There is an old guy at the bar, but the old man, of course, being the Mississippi River, which I don't think I've ever heard anybody call it the old man.
No.
But definitely not here. It's
Big
just
Muddy. We
the
call it
river.
Big Muddy.
Big Muddy.
Yeah.
Muddy Miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's
Or
what
just
it's
here,
about.
it's the river.
Yeah. So we're looking at the front door and the pool table rather than
Of the
Riverview of the Riverview Roadhouse. Yeah.
There you
There
go.
we are.
There it is.
We gotta.
First ding.
We're reminding everybody of what they already remember because
Right. They haven't missed it. We have.
yeah, it's a time travel issue here.
It really feels like it.
Yeah, and so at any rate,
We are continuing with our theme as of late of dystopia.
Yeah. So often scholars and people who just think about stuff like
Yeah.
dystopia, it's political people they tend to compare and contrast Orwell's 1984 to Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. We did 1984 last season, so we thought we'd start this season with Brave New World, and I read it over the summer, I kind of forgot everything about it, and my notes that I took when I read it.
You left those
I
on
left
vacation?
I left those in my office, which is like 30 minutes away.
I love that part.
But I kind of wrote some of them, and I even read a little article to try to get me back up to speed.
I consulted ChatGPT.
Okay, good. Yeah. What did it do? Did it help?
You're going to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Where do we start? Maybe just with.
Can we start with general impressions first,
let's
or like
do it.
what was
what we
your
do.
first? So the first 30, let's say first 50 pages. What was your general reaction?
I was really pretty bored, and I felt it was tedious, and I was irritated. And then it started picking up, and I want to talk about this later.
Same.
I want to talk about why, because
Okay.
I became the creative writing professor at some point. There's just it's pretty uncool for just your random creative writing professor to start workshopping a work of literature that's
We're going to do it anyway.
Well, in this case, I don't think this book is known as a great novel. I think it's the subject matter.
Yeah.
That's why people, and maybe some people will argue with me and say, oh, it is great. But I think around the literati, the literature professors, it's a pretty, I feel like I can criticize the craftsmanship of it because I just don't think that's why it's famous. I just think he makes some real mistakes, I believe, and maybe they weren't understood as mistakes then because there weren't so many creative writing guidebooks in 1930, But nowadays we look at it and we go, oh, that's why the first 50 pages are boring.
It was a lot of commentary, right, on sort of the times, on what they thought was coming. It
was setting the world. Okay, here's how it starts. It starts off the first sentence, the first couple of sentences, so.
Not as famous as "Call Me Ishmael."
No. And then there's this long paragraph, and I don't have it with me. I read it on Kindle, but it's a really excruciatingly complicated and artsy but bullshitty paragraph where it's like the sunlight came in looking for something, and all of a sudden the sunlight is personified, and it's very pretentious but also confusing. It just doesn't start very well, and then it starts picking up because it is an interesting story ultimately. But we just start off with this professor.
It's so weird.
Who is doing a tour of the fertility clinic. And so that's kind of the world we live in. There's no parents.
I would even say it's more than fertility. It was like people growing.
Yeah. It was the hatchery.
The hatchery.
I think they even call it that or something close to it. So they just have a bunch of human eggs developing into fetuses, and
they split them up to 96 identical people, because more than that they can't do.
Yeah, they're like 96 twins, and then they condition them, and it's a kind of a horrific situation.
Not great.
The way they do it, but it's a bunch of graduate students on a tour, and they're just so, oh my gosh, tell me more. So the professor essentially is telling the reader everything
that's going on.
But it felt like, oh, this is a device so that the author can tell me without any action going on, just essentially a talking head telling me about the world.
Right.
And then all the grad students are such yes men. Oh, tell me more. Great.
Right.
And as a professor, let me just say my bullshit detector was ringing pretty hard. Even in a world of this much conditioning, I still don't think the students are going to be that sycophantic. Yeah. Like all of them. They're
were
not as
extra thrilled to ask questions. And hands shot up in the air.
It was a little bit too much.
Over the top.
You always have a couple of those students, and then a couple of the opposite, just openly contemptuous, and then most of them are just kind of zoning out in between.
Right.
But anyway, I thought that it was a kind of a slog.
The first chapter in particular for me. So I listened to it as I usually do, and we had about a 30-second conversation about this. And I was like, the guy's voice, I can't. And it was actually the character that he was playing, the DHC, the director of hatchery and conditioning.
Yeah.
And he had this really obnoxious voice that he would do for that. And
the guy's an ass too,
Exactly.
and so, but he seems like you didn't need the voice.
He talks like this, like a
Yeah.
very,
charming.
Oh, it was not ideal.
Yeah. So wait, did you reverse and just read it like a...
No, I was going to, and that's what I told you I was going to do.
Yeah.
I did end up listening to it, and liked the voice actor that was. Ultimately, I liked him, but probably the first 2 chapters, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this because it was something.
You know what
like
you could have done?
12 or 14 hours.
You should have just played it while you were sleeping, and then you would have absorbed it all.
Yeah, that would work. Probably.
Well, just to let the listeners in on it, that's kind of like this whole conditioning thing rests on this idea that you can train people by playing things while they're sleeping, or even before they're pre-verbal when they're babies and stuff. If you just repeat sentences over and over long enough while you're sleeping, and then it'll implant itself. And I think that is just really, really not.
It's a really old. Yeah.
I think in the 1970s they were. I kind of remember I was like a really little kid in the 70s, and so I sort of remember that going around. There was this idea people were actually buying like records to play while they were sleeping. So it was like
it was a thing.
Kind of hucksters were sort of
okay.
So anyway, it was a thing in the 1970s. Of course, this was written in the 1930s, so we can't blame him for whiffing on that particular scientific thing.
I mean, yeah.
But too bad, because that would really solve a lot of problems when
Yeah.
it came to having to learn stuff.
That'd be great.
Yeah. You didn't
I'm
have to
I'm going to go study, take a nap.
Yeah,
be
every
amazing.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you were listening to the whole thing,
So I
and then it was...
listened ultimately, and I...
Well, luckily
I
the
sped it
guy,
up.
spoiler, of course, but that director doesn't last forever.
Well, he lasts a good long way.
He does,
He
toward
goes
the
to
end.
probably chapter 12 out of 17.
Yeah, he makes it 3/4 of the way
But he's not
through.
in a whole lot of it.
No,
Yeah.
he's pretty a tedious character. And
So, who is... We should probably mention some of the characters, and let's talk about sort of the first half versus
Bernard.
the second half.
So we have that director
Bernard
guy,
Marx.
Bernard Marx.
Which the audio book, or the audio, I don't know, the voice actor, he would say Bernard Marx.
Oh, that's wrong.
Bernard Marx. And I was like, wait,
That's the
Bernard?
other Moon Underwater.
Yeah, that's
pod.
their domain.
Yeah, they need to go
Yeah.
and listen to that audiobook.
But it does take place in London. So,
Yeah, totally. But it's also the whole world is like that, except for like
The whole world.
a little bit here
like
and there.
1984 at Central's on England.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have Bernard Marx, who is an Alpha Plus,
Except,
except he's like weird
He's
and
short.
small. He's short.
and he's unhappy.
He's unhappy and he's self-conscious and
And
he
why
like
is he
bosses
short?
around lower status people to make himself feel tougher. Because the rumor is that they accidentally stilted him. Okay, I guess we
there's
need to.
alcohol. We should probably go through the classes though. Alphas, alpha plus, alpha minus,
Yeah,
betas.
yeah.
You know,
And it goes down to these
Epsilons.
manual laborers. They call them like half idiots or something.
yeah.
Like
epsilons are half idiots.
yeah. So they're all created by poisoning them essentially
at
and
certain stages.
yeah,
and decanting.
decanting, letting depriving them of oxygen,
Yeah.
so that every class is perfectly suited to its class.
Yeah.
And then they're also conditioned for what kind of job they'll do by like kind of absurd levels. Like people that work in like heights, they like rock the test tube so that they have better balance.
Yeah.
Like
They're not
I'm
balancing
sorry.
when they're in the
That's-
test tube.
it's so
It doesn't
stupid,
make any
but-
sense.
and it's wrong to bagging on classic science fiction because
Well-
the science isn't right is
I got just a chuckle out of it more than anything, and it seemed in some of those cases where something sounded ridiculous, there was, like, well, who would have thought that this would make the difference?
Yeah,
and then they lay it out there. So.
There's one, like the language in classic science fiction often becomes a source of humor, unintentional humor, because the authors can't think of truly new stuff.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they think of the technology they have right then and then just make it more and more and more and more. And they think, oh, that's going to be. And
right.
So the music they have, it's essentially classical music, but they call it like he playing a super violin. They just put the word super in front of all the instruments.
But there was some other stuff that they came up with that I was like
what?
Okay. Well, man, do we want to get into this now?
You want to go later?
I
like
so.
Pneumatic.
Describing a woman as pneumatic.
Oh, she's very pneumatic. And
it's on my notes.
I totally want to just bring that back,
Yes.
She's looking pretty pneumatic. Like
too funny.
It's very much baby got back and
well, we can get to sort of that
not too pneumatic.
Not,
she's
not,
she's
clearly not
just pneumatic enough.
Just enough. Pneumatic is a great word.
Yeah. Full of air, which is also I know this fly.
I know this fly keeps bugging. Please watch the video. Like and subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So other podcasts here comes a train. Here, let's add to the train.
Yeah.
And you got to drink when the train comes by. Cheers.
Cheers. Ooh, that made a nice
other
noise.
podcasts, they spend 20 minutes straight like kissing ass to their listeners and go, oh, well, it's time that we got to thank all of our blah, 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 blah. So
we'll do that in the if you subscribe to us portion and you pay us on Patreon somehow, even though we're not signed up, then we'll thank you and kiss your ass.
Yeah.
That
right now, anyway.
It's all,
So what were we saying?
You know that we love you.
Yeah. What were we saying?
We're talking about Bernard and Lenina, who is pneumatic.
So did we get enough of the backstory? So everybody. Oh yeah, everybody. If you're this is actually kind of cool. There's an Epsilon who is the elevator man, which is really funny. They're super technologically advanced, but they
you got to have a guy running the elevator because you're too dumb to run it yourself.
Yeah. And also, just the elevator can't be automated somehow.
Well.
but
Clearly, because you couldn't scan something to, go to the floor that you wanted to, or you were entitled to go to, or whatever,
or say it, or whatever.
Yeah.
But they have this guy, and he's conditioned to get super happy when he sees the sun, and so he likes going up in the elevator. And then he gets kind of sad when he's going down in the elevator. But then he's living for that moment that he gets off work, and then he can. I don't know. That's everybody's perfectly crafted toward their job, and but Bernard seems to have. The rumors are somebody accidentally put some alcohol in his test tube because he doesn't seem quite right.
Too short.
It's short mainly, but also he's not well adjusted probably just because he's short. And so he acts funny.
He's got a thing,
He's got a chip on his shoulder. It's very much the short man complex because he bosses around like betas and all that kind of stuff and he's short with them and short with them.
I got it.
So he's one of them.
This sort of caste system thing, I want to dive a little deeper. So, there's a little bit of a feeling of 1930s, eugenics, right? So you have a control over population. You have, Marxism being established in certain places. I think it's no accident that his last name is Marx. And they're talking about the different classes of people and the jobs they're allowed to do.
His girlfriend's name is Lenina.
Yes, I love that.
And everybody has this. It does seem like it's mostly. Oh no, but Ford is their god.
That's right. Do you remember why? There was some. I don't. Before I ask, I mean,
what? For some reason, I can't. The guy Ford Motor Company.
I think so.
Wait, but what's his first name? Henry Ford.
Henry Ford.
Yeah, Henry Ford. Yeah, it's very much that. And it's because it's the worship. They started time over
Yeah.
They just
200 AF.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that means something different now.
After Ford.
Right.
Yeah, as so yeah, we eventually find out that there's like a World War III that kills almost
Right.
everybody in the world. They're dropping anthrax bombs instead of nuclear bombs,
Right.
but okay.
That's
That's pretty horrific.
Yeah.
You know?
That's pretty close.
And
Yeah.
so the whole world organizes. We don't find this out till the end, but I think might as well just understand the world we're in. The whole world organizes, and this is why they tolerate so much social control, because the
It was
other side of
horrible.
it is
Yeah.
that they say we can't have any more wars like that. We gotta clamp down, and we got to do it by making everybody totally happy.
Yes.
That's the opposite angle that 1984
everybody.
took.
Yes. That
So-
everybody needs to be happy.
We're going to condition everybody to be happy whether they like it or not, and
Right.
we're going to come up with all these different ways to do it, starting with the way that you're birthed or created in a
Right. Because
in a
there are no
lab.
births.
There are no births and no parents, and calling somebody a parent is
It's like blasphemous. And
absolutely the worst thing
Yeah.
you could say to somebody. It's like disgusting and
Yeah.
et cetera.
vile.
Yeah.
It's saying mother or father was considered like the worst things you could say. Like people
Yeah.
would shudder.
Yeah.
And- yeah.
Oh yeah, like the N-word or something, right? It's like, oh, you're canceled now.
How can you possibly say that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's where we are. Right?
So we got and Lenina. Should we talk about her, or Lenina is how you said it?
Well, yeah, Lenin is how they said it in the audiobook.
But that was just wrong. And
I mean,
everything
I
they
was
say.
pronouncing it like it was Lenin.
Yeah, Lenina,
Because that's how it's spelled.
Lenina, whatever.
Yeah.
She is just a very pneumatic lassie.
Yep.
Lass, right? Yeah.
And she's been with lots of the
the
men.
yeah.
Because
so
they all kind of hook up.
we got to talk about the sexuality in this. So one of the things that keeps everybody happy in this happy world
Oh, yeah.
is, first off, everybody's happy with their job because they've been conditioned for it.
Right.
They're
They
happy
also-
with their class because they've been conditioned. Like if you're a beta, you're like, oh, they have to repeat or hear repeated thousands and
Yeah.
tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times that I like being a beta. Beta is the best. I don't want to be an alpha because they work so hard, and the gammas, oh, they're beastly.
They're
And-
yeah. They're below us basically.
so everybody likes where they are because of just repeating it over and over. And then there is sex, which they all encourage from a childhood. They get them to play
Yeah.
with each other's genitals, like right at the
So weird.
in the daycare, and they punish kids for like not wanting to play the touchy games, which is pretty different from our
pretty
current
creepy, yeah.
attitude. So it's a very sexualized world, and there's a lot of people. A lot of the women are just infertile, and others just they carry around like cartridges of whatever those things are called. Yeah, like where you can't keep like
Right.
what is it called when you contraceptives?
Yeah. Oh, that's wow. It's a grown-up word.
Yeah, there's like multiple syllables in that one.
Yeah.
I think that Lenina is like it's like a bandolier, like a bullet belt that goes across your chest. It's
Oh.
like that, but it's these contraceptives that they don't tell us how they work or anything. And they also it's like
It
seems
just works.
they could just have one permanent contraceptive, just
They didn't realize
sterilize
that.
them at
Yeah.
at 13 or whatever.
Right. That didn't nobody
but they
considered that.
condition them to take the contraceptives so regularly that it could never happen.
Right. No, they
so-
could never have
so-
a kid. No, they could never be a mother.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
How dare you say that?
I know.
So they have a lot of sex, and Lenina is particularly attractive,
popular.
and everybody likes her, and she gets a lot of dates and goes on a lot of dates, and the guys are judged
They're not
by
monogamous. That's
Oh
the
no!
weird part.
If
right?
you start seeing one person too many times in a row without anybody else, it's really frowned upon, and there's social pressure to start seeing somebody else, including the person you're seeing starts getting creeped out by it.
Yeah.
Like, wait, how come you haven't slept with anybody else? And so jealousy and anything like that has been cured in this world. But so there's Lenina, and the reason why she's in the book is because Bernard, poor hapless Bernard, asks her out.
Yeah.
And though she's aware of the rumors and that he's short or small, she goes, "Oh, he's like a cat or something. He's kind of cute."
Yeah.
And so she's intrigued, but also he promises to do something for her and he's an Alpha Plus, and so she's going to go out with him, and that's a big plot point, which starts on page 50, which is not the place you start your plot. That's my first salvo.
And that's
in
where it
terms
got
of,
interesting, I would say.
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Should we should we go with more characters first, or and then
because we're going to have to start telling more of the story to get to the characters.
Okay, here's how a real easy, kind of straightforward way to talk about story structure. The story starts the day that something different happened. Every writer of a novel, short story needs to know what is the story.
So what we get is, in this case, the exact same thing happened.
For 50 pages, they're 50 showing pages. Us what happens every day.
Right.
And it's like
because we don't know.
It makes it a little more interesting, but even then it gets tedious. I would suggest if this were...
Should we rouse him from the dead?
Please.
Okay.
Let's... I think it needs a revision.
All right.
You can get all that background information of the world while the action of the plot is going on.
I would agree.
You just start with the day that things go different.
Where they went to?
Here's the day.
Is that for me?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say the first day, the story starts the day that Bernard muscles up all his courage. He's a nervous guy. He's afraid of getting rejection. But he's the nerd asking out the popular girl.
Okay.
And she says yes, but here's how you can make that more dramatic. First, you get to know Bernard a little bit, and you're worried about, he's going to ask. Everybody knows that story. Asking a girl out, she might say no, and maybe it's a perilous situation. He could be humiliated. He asks her out, and she's reluctant at first, or she says no, but then he brings out his secret weapon, which is, oh yeah. How about if I take you to the savage land? And then we learn, this should be chapter 1. Then we learn, only 14 people have seen it this year because it's highly classified. And then we also realize that only people who work in my field, and we also can get that sense that, it's kind of questionable ethically to use your privilege to go to this
New Mexico.
To go to this place, New Mexico, that is this totally forbidden to everybody based on your job just to impress a cute girl.
Which is totally what he did.
It is, but they bury the lead. You barely even get that. And him asking her out actually happens off stage. I just think it's a mistake. You start with that with chapter 1, and then you learn about the hatchery.
By the way, we're going to New Mexico. It wasn't...
Yeah.
I'd been, he'd been there before. Because it wasn't right?
It should be set up as the big thing, and then we're wondering, I can't wait to get to New Mexico. That sounds pretty interesting. Something's going to happen there. And then while we're learning about the hatchery and the world, we're interested in that, but we're all waiting for the date.
Yeah.
And so that's how narrative tension is created. You hook them. Well, you just hook them with the plot right at the beginning, with the thing that's happening, with the conflict. This guy's going to do this unethical thing and bring this girl to a place that's supposed to be reserved for research. And it's also kind of a dodgy place. It's kind of a dangerous place.
Right.
And then you can finally get to the... And so things do get really interesting once they leave.
They leave, but before they leave, he's telling the DHC, the director of hatchery and conditioning, the guy whose voice I hated. They tell him, he tells him that he's going, and he's like, I went there years ago.
Which seemed way too convenient.
Way too convenient.
See, I think a more skillful act of writing or editing could have buried that, could have let that guy's connection feel more organic rather than just jammed in there.
I went, blah, blah, blah. When I listened to it, I went, that's and I forget the Russian writer said, nothing is by accident. Right?
Yeah, that's Chekhov's gun.
I heard it. I was like, okay, well, that's obvious. We're going to go and find her in New Mexico.
It's the timing of it is what makes it sound
Yeah,
screwed
it's
up.
perfect timing.
You need to bring that up really early,
Yeah.
and then allow us to forget about it and make it real casual. Like, oh yeah, I went there too, and maybe even
Don't mention the name.
I would also
You
do
know?
something else. I would. This is like
I love
you're not
this.
allowed to revise.
Well, it's too late.
Rewrite,
If we had a DeLorean
famous-
that was a time machine,
Yeah.
I would totally go back and help him fix this.
No, I would just write it like 1 year before him, and then just like publish it, and he'd be like, huh?
Yeah, exactly. How did they know? Oh,
and then
we
I
knew.
I'd do 1984 right after that.
Yeah.
And then unless it's when did 19 anyway, I would get the timing right, and if not, I would just drive the DeLorean
1984
around.
was in the 50s, I think.
Yeah.
But we will have to check it.
Yeah. So I would introduce Soma
Oh,
by
God, how has it been until now?
So Soma is one of the strategies they use to make everybody happy,
Yeah.
and that's just if everything else fails, you can pop the perfect buzz drug that doesn't
Yeah.
give you a hangover.
Right.
It just makes you, if you take a little, you're just in a good mood. If you take a medium amount, you're partying, ecstatic.
Yeah.
It sounds like ecstasy.
And better than one. There was one character who preferred it to the mezcal and peyote.
Oh yeah, the mezcal and peyote was
That give you a hangover.
a little bit. But
We'll get to that.
it doesn't hurt at all. So and if you take a ton, you just you just zone out, nod off into a full-on hallucination trip.
But you can die.
You can die, and actually taking it your whole life, you die earlier. It takes, but a doctor says something really interesting toward the end of the novel. He goes, yeah, but in one sense, if you go onto a deep Soma trip for like 12 hours, it's like a month it feels like a month, and so you're actually in, it's extending your life,
Right.
in a way,
Because you're living more.
yeah, you're just long, something like that. It's all perspective.
So we go. Okay, should we go back to New Mexico at this point? And the
Have we got there
reservation?
yet? I was going to tell you how I would introduce that awkward plot point where the director also went
Yeah.
to New Mexico. I would have Bernard meet him, maybe accidentally at a club, and he's like really high on Soma, and that's why he confides in him in this like secret. Like I would make more sense that he would tell this secret thing
Rather than
he just starts telling somebody, the
But-
last person in the world that he should tell.
the whole thing sort of had a voice like that to me. I guess that there was sort of odd details given at various points, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, this, I'm seeing what's here. It was fairly obvious to me, the literary muggle, if you will.
It was it was just a little ham-fisted, but
It was.
anyway, let's so we can go. So
We can
he asks,
They
wait,
take the
what
rocket.
about wait, we need to meet his buddy. He has like
Oh, yeah.
what is his name?
Oh,
I forgot it.
I got characters here. Hold.
So Bernard's a misfit because he's smaller and weirder and more neurotic.
Is it Henry Foster?
Henry Foster is, I think. No, I don't think so. I think Henry Foster is just the total normie who is Lenina's boyfriend.
Yes.
He's just like Mr. Totally fine. He's perfect for this world. Fits in.
Was it Helmholtz Watson?
Yeah, I think so.
Alpha Plus lecturer at the College of Emotional Engineering. Unlike Bernard.
Yeah, he's a writer.
Yep. So he's the genius in this, right?
Yeah, so he's a misfit because he's too smart and too competent. He's sticking up. Like, Bernard is sort of like ducking down. And
Is this
he's
Huxley? He's writing himself in a little bit.
Maybe so.
The smartest guy here.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he's also really handsome. I don't think Huxley was. I've seen the pictures of him.
Oh, really?
He doesn't
Okay.
seem very handsome. It seems kind of.
Aldous Huxley. We didn't even mention that we did
Aldous?
it again. No,
What?
we did it again. We started reviewing something and did not say the name of the person who produced the thing that we
Yeah.
are reviewing.
That's.
Another shout out to the moon underwater.
I may have.
I hope
may
so.
have. We'll just
Yeah.
shout out to whoever.
Yeah.
But Brave New World, everybody
Yeah.
knows that.
Wow.
And Aldous Huxley, what a name, Aldous.
Aldous.
And also Huxley.
It went away.
Yeah, I like that name.
I do too.
That's going to be my pen name. Aldous,
All right. Aldous Huxley.
Aldous Huxley. Yeah, my next book will just be by Aldous Huxley.
It should be Elvis Huxley. And just to, see if people
Elvis
are paying
Huxter.
attention. I like it.
Elvis Huxter.
Elvis Huxter.
Um,
It's a good online name.
so
Good band name.
Yeah.
The Elvis Huxters.
Yeah. How about Elvis Huxtable?
Oh, I like
Little
it.
throwback to
Yeah, the Cosby
Bill
Show.
Cosby.
Yeah.
It brings up all that kind of awkwardness.
Yeah.
So Bill Cosby would have been good in this world.
He would
All
have
the
been.
Soma, nobody would have minded him
No.
doing his business.
They'd be like, he actually gives you soma. You don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he gets it. He gets it. Yeah.
We're canceled again.
No, come on. We're harmless.
So what happens in New Mexico?
What does? So they finally. But his friend, he meets with him a couple times, and that guy, and then finally he takes what's her name to Lenina to New Mexico,
Yep.
and it's the Savages, and
That's
it's
what
an
they
Indian
call 'em.
reservation
Yeah.
that for whatever reason this world has decided not to
They're gonna let them be.
Yeah, although they are.
So they're like an uncontacted tribe today.
Yeah, but they're like hardcore Catholic influence.
They were
Yeah.
they were influenced before everything, sort of went to hell.
Yeah,
after
yeah.
the war. Yeah.
So 1930, Henry Ford era.
Yeah.
And they were already being kind of like messed with by Christianity. So they show up. It's like a field station, and Lenina hates it.
She is miserable.
The idea that she was going to like it, she didn't know herself very well.
Right.
She likes being high on
Soma,
Soma, and
yeah.
she likes partying, and she likes having sex. And
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
And none of that stuff is going on in the reservation.
Right.
They're
seeing these interesting dances.
Yeah.
And,
but it smells like she
talks about the smell a lot.
The smell. Oh yeah.
Of the
'cause
people.
Smell in their world. There's always these smells that are kind of like being shot into the environment. So that's like a big part. And the movies they see are
scent
called
organ.
are called feelies.
Yes.
So they aren't just like the sight and sound. They also make you feel, and they're mostly pornographic. So essentially like a full
3 weeks in a helicopter.
full body.
The name of the movie that they discuss.
Somebody kidnaps a woman and takes her up in a helicopter and then rapes her for 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
And that's the
helicopters are in this too. I want to get to that eventually.
Yeah, the heli-taxi.
Yeah, and there's
was one of the least
jet
successful.
copters.
Yeah,
I did love it. So we're in New Mexico, and we find this woman Linda, who's been mentioned by the DHC, as having gone with him, and she has had the child of the DHC while in.
So the DHC admitted to Bernard that he went to New Mexico
With
and he
Linda.
lost a girl, his date.
And he said her name was Linda.
Yeah.
And
then,
she never has a last name in all of this.
Yeah.
Found
and
that a
so
little troubling.
they go to the place and they're doing a ceremony, and then they see a white kid, and then they're like, "What's up?" And he is.
I like that. They're
Don't
like,
they-
"What's up?"
Don't they beat the shit out of him?
They've done that several times. Yeah.
Yeah. But this tribe, one thing I will say is that the trope, at least in the last few decades, is to make the noble savage, is to romanticize the Native American into this almost like this image of purity.
Well, they didn't do that.
Oh no,
he
these
didn't
were
do that. Yeah.
these were really, really degraded people. They were filthy. They were unhealthy.
They all
were
smelled bad.
They smell terrible. They all were just wasted every day on mezcal and abusive. But they also had like the Native American kind of religion mixed in with this like self-hating, whipping yourself practically to death Christianity. Those people that flagellate themselves or whatever. It's that kind of deal. and Jesus is one of the. Anyway, it's a real twisted.
There's some parallels to that story too, right? With the person we're introduced to, the son of
the savage John
the Savage.
Yeah, and his mom, and they finally find his mom, and then the fact that she is a mother. She was pregnant somehow.
And it's Linda.
Linda was pregnant, which is not supposed to happen. No. And then she gets lost and falls down a ravine or something, and then gets saved by the savages, as they call them. And then she gives birth and is raised there, but this is not an accepting group of Indians. They hate the white-skinned. They find her a foul person because she has sex with anybody who wants to have sex with her, and that's not cool. And so the other women beat her up, and her son is shunned by everybody.
Right.
He's treated terribly.
She's pretty miserable.
She's very, very unhappy. She's also unattractive and old-looking because she hasn't been kept
Can I tell you my favorite part of her, of the description of her? It's her teeth. She's missing several teeth, but that her teeth were just a mess. And I was like, this isn't British author, right? I mean, I know.
Even worse than
I'm like,
than that.
Hey, pot, it's kettle.
Well, I think that her teeth were more just like a few black stumps, it was. She was pretty.
I had just average British teeth in my head.
I think she was worse than that, but
okay.
So they find her and then decide to bring...
He decides that he's... Yeah.
So Bernard wants to bring them back because he has decided he's going to out the director.
Yeah.
And so that's his whole plan. And so the director is literally a father, which is the worst thing you can be.
The worst.
And that the woman, Linda, is a grotesque... But then, so they bring him back, and it works beautifully on the director. The director's
ready to oust him. He's going to send him to the worst place in the world, which for him is Iceland.
Yeah.
Going to an island.
Yeah, so the director is going to send Bernard
publicly
away because he just doesn't like him.
He doesn't like him, and he basically says, what can you offer to me right now in front of everybody that would make me not send you there? And he's like... Meet your son.
And then Linda shows up and she's trying to hug him, and he's like,
He's like, oh my God, this is gross.
And he just shrivels up and disappears from the book.
Does.
We
lose him.
Over.
Yeah.
He becomes the laughing stock. It's like,
but he wasn't the big boss, right? He wasn't who we ultimately
Mustafa Mond.
Mustafa Mond.
So that is he's a world controller. He basically is in control of Europe.
Yeah. He was a physicist, I think, right?
He was way back. We learn later. At first, we just see him briefly, and then he shows up at the end, or toward the end. So the DHS is gone, and now you have Linda, who just decides she just wants to, go hard on Soma every single day.
All the time.
And it's, going to kill her really soon. She's 40.
Here's to Linda.
Yeah, good old Linda. She knew how to do it. She knew what was important.
There we go.
So indeed, so John the Savage comes to talk to the doctor, and go, hey, you can't let her do all this stuff. It's bad for her. He's like, it'll probably kill her, but she's happy.
She's happy.
And
which is the main goal. Everybody should just be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she does die.
She does.
So
John decides to, after her death, because they condition the children to love death. They give them ice cream and other niceties when someone dies. And so it's considered, they condition it to be normal.
Yeah.
That seemed like a more...
While she was dying, they had a bunch of those twins,
96 of them.
They come running in, and they're crawling all over her, and John is kicking them and throwing them away.
Punching them in the face.
Yeah, they're like babies, essentially.
He's like, these little brats.
Oh, yeah.
John the Savage is unhappy with them.
He is unhappy about a lot of things. He is incredibly attracted to Lenina. He's so out of his head, but the fact that she wants to sleep with him makes her a slut, and it disgusts him and disgusts himself, and they're supposed to... He has this weird, like, you need to get married and date. Like, I don't... That seemed not really
That
a
there were
Native
some weird
American
things about his character,
kind of
I would
thing.
say.
Yeah.
But the point of the whole thing, if we're getting towards the end, was leading up to him dealing with Mustafa Ahmad.
Yeah.
Right. The
All
world,
three of the guys. So
Right.
now you have three misfits hanging around this world.
Right.
One is a newcomer. He's the savage.
He's heard how wonderful this place is from
Yeah.
his mother, dirty word.
Yeah.
And he can't believe how horrible it is once he sees it.
Yeah. Because
Okay.
there's no suffering. There's
right.
no challenge. It's,
There's some Jesus-y references that we'll get to later.
Yeah.
With him suffering.
Oh, yeah.
And then Bernard Marx, as they called him in when I was. So he was not necessarily in defense of his world, I think. He didn't think either was perfect.
Oh, no, when he became high status, because he got famous for bringing the Savage in, and so the
Right.
Savage becomes a celebrity. Oh, he's so cool, and everybody wants him to go to a party, and we get to meet the Savage.
The
and he's
Savage, who has read lots of Shakespeare.
yeah, everything he knows comes from like the collected works of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So he talks like that, and all his references. So yeah, Bernard has his moment of celebrity, and he immediately starts liking the culture now. He's
Right.
like, oh, this place is okay now.
Not terrible.
And his friend, Helmut, is that his name?
I think so.
Helmut is like, you fucking loser. Like,
Yeah.
because he's already been at the top, and he doesn't like it because,
Doesn't get him anything, right?
he can't challenge. He's got no challenge.
Right.
Yeah, because he can't write the way he wants to write. He has to just write what's expected. And so he doesn't really love this new Bernard, who has no character.
You mean
But
Helmholtz.
what is it?
Helmholtz?
Helmholtz.
Yeah.
Helmholtz. That's his last name,
Yeah.
right? What's his first?
Watson?
Helmholtz Watson.
Helmholtz
Okay.
Watson.
All right.
Yeah.
Helmholtz.
Yeah.
And then, so what happens is that the Savage goes crazy and starts like trying to.
He's
like,
getting rid of all the soma.
Yeah, he's grabbing people's soma from them and throwing it and trying to wake them up, and they're like, "Bro, you're like
you're
you're
harshing my buzz, bro.
You're taking my soma, man."
Yeah.
And-
not a good look.
And so the cops come and they start like spraying the whole crowd with soma
Yeah.
to calm everybody down.
They
Like,
have water guns with soma.
yeah, it's just such a great.
It is.
These
It's a
are the
good
riot
visual.
police,
Yeah, there's a lot of Fahrenheit 451 in there.
Yeah, sure. It's
like-
in the same
It is,
world
yeah.
of control.
Yeah.
And so the other two guys go to try to save the Savage, who's being arrested, essentially. Even though in this perfect world, nobody's really arrested.
No.
It's just for your own
They
protection.
do make
we're
a
gonna-
mention of the death chamber or the death. There was something that to get rid of somebody.
Yeah, there is something you can do that gets you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely can get banished.
Well, so they end up basically the last 3 chapters, I would say, are philosophical discussion, right? It is a discussion of full control and happiness versus allowing suffering. So there's some.
So the discussion happens because they're all brought before
Yes.
the big man himself.
The big man. Yeah.
Mustafa
And he can make the
Ahmad.
laws.
And he is a world controller. Like there's like 7 of them in the world, and
Yeah.
they control everything somehow.
He's the equivalent of Tina Turner from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Oh, yeah.
I make the law.
Yeah, he can do whatever he wants. And at one point, Bernard's writing him a report about the Savage, and he's like, "This little fucker." He's blanking out the word mother.
Yeah.
And Mond is like, he thinks I'm like too sensitive to hear the word mother. You got it. This guy's an idiot.
Right.
He's like, Frank, straight up, this guy's an idiot.
Yep.
And pretty much learn about Mond, and he comes onto the scene, and I think it gets really interesting because
this is where it
you
pays
think
off.
he's going to be a bad guy, and he may be.
Oh, he's a great villain.
but
I think he's a villain.
But it's more, I think it's more, okay, first off, he's a physicist before he became a world controller, like a real, and he just goes, oh, no, there's no science in this world. We can't
allow that.
We can't allow people to come up with new discoveries.
Nope.
They think they have science, but it's just the things we want them to do science on. So it's like social science of how to, keep the masses calm. That's the only science there is.
Right.
And it's all been done before, so there's nothing new.
Right.
And he decides, and he tells them that we can't be having these wars anymore, so we all decided to...
This is what we all gave up.
And there's a lot of things, like challenge and that and that. He goes, is it worth it? He goes, well, but he goes, luckily for you, there are a lot of islands in the world, and and people that don't fit in, we send them to an island, and you could choose which one. And then Bernard is like, what? He's like crying.
Bernard
he goes,
oh,
come on, man. Everybody who is anybody is on an island. Like, these are all the most interesting people.
Right.
And so Watkins he's like, what kind of island you can be the kind of writer you want to be on one of these islands. What kind of climate do you want?
This is the best.
And he goes, I want something really cold.
Harsh.
Cold and harsh, so I can he goes, I like your, the cut of your jib.
He ends up in the Falklands as a result.
He sends him to the Falklands. And then
he didn't call him Malvinas.
Bernard just goes through a panic attack, and he doesn't comport himself well at all.
As a shout out to the Argentines, they did not call him Malvinas.
Oh, okay.
That's what they call him.
Good. Should we
ding Malvinas,
Argentina?
the Argentine friends out there.
Argentine friends. There you go.
So
and so Mond, it really does. I guess this is a question I would ask: are there parts of this world that is or could be reasonable? I mean, is there a line between freedom and? Of course, there's a line between freedom and whatever stability.
They are. There seems to be options, and he knows that in order to be a better writer, he has to suffer. Like, that's what his thought is.
Yeah.
And this is in a world where there should be otherwise no suffering, right? I mean, that's sort of the way that it's billed, throughout the beginning of it. But then there still is. They can't control everything, right? They're not controlling the weather. They're not, other things that might drive a person a little mad, I think. That sort of things that occurred to me as it was winding down.
So, Mond, this is what the world controllers are doing. There's no conflict anymore. There's no unhappiness. And they're like, yeah, but you're turning these people into like epsilon idiots. And he goes, but they're happy.
They're thrilled.
They
are
love
very happy.
Being because they've been conditioned to be happy. And they don't even have to kill the misfits. They just send them, and you could have these little pockets of weirdness. There's no real science, no real art. There's nothing really. It's all the same. And Mond himself kind of regrets that. He's like, it's too bad. I'm a scientist after all, but
I can't science.
He had to, he had to turn down a really interesting science paper. He goes, because it was too good. And he didn't like it. So I don't know. I feel like Mustafa Mond just makes a pretty good argument. And I'm not saying I want to live in that world, but after an anthrax World War III.
Argument for totalitarianism a little.
It is, no doubt. But it's a gentle totalitarianism,
It is.
you know?
I would say that for me, as I'm reading this, full disclosure, I've not read all of it because I couldn't do it. Atlas Shrugged is a lot like this.
I haven't read that one.
I don't recommend it.
No? Okay.
If you think this was hard to consume and
heavy-handed and
oh my God.
Yeah.
And I mean, obvious things are obvious, and it's what, 1,000 pages or something. And I've probably made it through 600 of them, and it's like, okay, I'm going to put this down and come back to it. And I can't. But it's more of a commentary about, the time, right? And so in this case, we have eugenics. And we kind of talked about some of these things, and then you have the flip side of that, which is the savage who is coming in and saying, but it doesn't have to be this way. Not everybody has to be like this. And he's sort of Jesus-y. In his presentation, right?
Yeah.
He tells the story about how he laid himself out on a rock for 3 days or whatever to see what it was like to be crucified, and then ultimately the savage. So spoiler alert, he does kill himself.
He goes off on his own.
Yep.
The Mustafa Mond will not allow him to go to an island because he wants to see the experiment.
Right.
Through to the end, and so he goes off and finds like a place to live outside of town, essentially.
Yep.
And he starts just like subsistence farming, and everything seems cool, except he just feels the need to whip the shit out of himself, and especially because he feels lust for Lenina, and that he wants to he hates himself for. That part of him is really weird, and so he's self-beating himself.
Self-beating himself. Yes.
Yeah, that's well put. And then the town starts seeing him doing it, and then they all start showing up, and they start kind of like copying him in this weird way, and it becomes too much for him. And they show up later to check on him, and he's hanging from the rafters, essentially.
He can't do it.
No.
Yep.
So it's tragic, but he also is like pretty awful. And
you think so?
Oh, he beats the shit out of Lenina because she wants to have sex with him. Like, he physically assaults her.
Well,
it's just too much.
It sounds like 1932.
Yeah, I suppose.
I didn't hate him.
I
like the philosophical debate, I guess, in the last 3 chapters, and that to me was redeeming for the entire thing.
Yeah,
and
that was
as
interesting.
painful of a read as it was, and that's what I wanted. So that's the comparison to Atlas Shrugged. I'm not sure it pulls off this. I'm not sure Atlas Shrugged can come close, or The Fountainhead, or any other Ayn Rand books.
A lot of people like it, but I've heard it's good for like a high school age. That's the level of philosophy in a way.
For which one? All of them?
Atlas.
Oh.
Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't read it, but
I can't. I know what they're trying to get to based on reading things about it. I'm not suggesting we're going to read that one, by the way.
Thank you.
No problem. I wouldn't do that to anybody, let alone you. So, let's see what else. Okay, we're winding down our beers, so I want to get to what about the stuff that maybe you got right. Like, certain things
I wanted to talk about that too.
All right, what do you got?
Well, first I just want to acknowledge that a couple of things that make this a dystopia aren't. I feel like Huxley was kind of tilting the scales toward everything being shitty in a way that he didn't have to do.
Right.
What I mean by that is, what if the savage was actually what I would consider a more typical Native American tribal person who didn't want to whip the shit out of himself and wasn't all judgmental about sex.
It would have been.
I feel like he probably would have liked it. He probably would have been a celebrity, and he probably would have been a good influence. Anyway, it wouldn't have ended the way it did, and he would probably hook up with Lenina, and they would have been a hot couple for a while. Yeah. And they would have been like a celebrity couple because she's nice and pneumatic, and he's
nice and pneumatic.
Yeah, and so I feel like if a little more plausible story, things would have worked out a lot better. Mm. And the other thing is, okay, here's the part that I could be convinced of. It's not the world I want to live in, but it does seem like a possible future, which is the no parents, all the kids are hatched.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't have to drop alcohol. What if they just
I love that part.
dropping alcohol in
Yeah.
them. Oh, yeah, that's what makes it so horrific.
Yeah.
But if you take that part away and that you're so technologically advanced that you actually don't really need there's no laborers. If you're
Yeah, that was sort of weird.
all you have to do is have everybody just is born in these things, and then there's no parenthood, and then there'd be, and the whole idea that you live to like 65, but you look young the whole time,
Yeah.
and then you suddenly die. I feel like those things are like, yeah, that's a fair trade-off in a lot of ways. I mean,
All right.
it's just clipping off the last 20 years that are not the best ones.
Well, we're going to find out. Well,
I know.
hopefully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So anyway, that I felt like the whole like the hatchery futuristic world, I could see it like as a legitimate direction that society could go. And like I said, it's probably not the world I would choose, but I could see it being a functional society that isn't morally horrific, because what makes it morally horrific is how they're purposely damaging the fetuses.
Right. So can I take the flip side of the argument from John and John the Savage and maybe what everybody. I think there's an underlying question of should everyone be happy all the time. I think we're out. Oh, we got a drop of beer left.
Yeah.
Is it required that everybody be happy all the time? And I feel like John was saying no.
Yeah.
And that one of the things I feel like he got right is, there's now a certain percentage of the population on medication to make them happier, to make them happy. And full disclosure, I have been on those before.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, okay, I get it. Is that part of life? And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I have no idea. I think it's different for everybody. It's less cookie cutter than what this made it out to be. And I was going to end on a lighter note than that.
Yeah.
The shit that he got right. And you want to respond first?
To your idea that John, suffering is absolutely part of the life. Here's what I think about it.
That's John's take, right?
It is, and I think it's a pretty common sense one. I don't trust. In the end, I didn't buy that even a really advanced human world could be that good at social control. I just didn't quite buy it. I think that you would be. I think that all these autocratic kind of countries and stuff, they always struggle to kind of keep the control, and they're always working at it. Whereas this seems like they got it down so well,
perfect,
that there's never like the tiniest little dissent. They snuff it out right away.
Well, they put them on an island. You can't get off of there.
Yeah. And on and on and on, and also their economy works so well. Everybody has got so much wealth, even though nobody is good at anything because there's no advancement.
No.
There's no interesting science. There's no art because they make sure that doesn't happen.
Right.
And so they have done away with natural selection, and I just believe in natural selection. That if you short circuit natural selection, somebody's going to come along and kick your ass who is stronger than you, because you have made yourself weak. And also just having the whole world subscribe to one political philosophy with no uprisings or anything. It just...
So you believe Dr. Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park?
I haven't seen that. My gosh, I should watch it. But
we should read it.
Yeah, okay, sure.
It could be a dystopian novel.
Yeah. Dinosaurs get loose.
I read it, and I read the paperback 35 years ago.
I bet you it's a page turner.
It is. Yeah. There's a lot of really in-depth technical paragraphs with nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah.
That part's annoying.
Yeah, well.
But, it's like proving that he knows what the fuck he's talking about.
He needs to do that.
Yeah.
So wanted to end on
something fun. Some of the shit that he got right.
Yeah.
Right? Let's
helicopters everywhere.
Jet copters. Some of them are jet copters.
Yeah.
There's also rockets. The
Yeah.
green rocket from
it's like a train.
it's on time. So
You-
it
hop
was
on a
20 seconds late.
Yeah, they're bad about that.
But I loved it. I loved
Me
it.
too.
Yeah.
How great they were at their rockets.
And also, one of my favorites was Lenina was wearing bell-bottom trousers.
Woo!
That was fucking awesome. 1932, this came out.
Yeah.
He's wearing bell-bottoms.
Yeah, that's pretty badass.
Who knew?
Yeah.
That to me,
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing from this whole thing that I took away.
Should have been all about fashion.
Should have been because
Yeah.
he nailed it.
Yeah.
He's like, what are we going to be wearing 40 years from now? I know.
We
These
should
things,
eventually
bell-bottoms.
We should eventually do Clockwork Orange too.
I'm in.
That's a great book, and the movie is great too.
The movie is great.
I think the movie is different, but also anyway, I think it's my favorite Stanley Kubrick movie. And as far as fashion goes, I love how they all look. Yeah.
I was going to just do like top and bottom eyelashes on one side.
Yeah.
And eyeliner around it.
Yeah,
I'll do that for that show.
Okay, well, we're gonna dress up.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Why would you not?
I'm gonna say that I'm going to, and then I won't, so that you're the only one dressed up.
Should I get like a derby hat to go along with it?
Yeah. Well, I'll just wear the codpiece outside the pants. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
As one does. Yeah.
That's the fashion in those days.
As one does.
Yeah.
All right. So what? Oh, okay. Last thing. I was going to end on the fun note, but I'm not. Listening to it, I was like, God damn it! Othello comes up 50 times, and you're the English lit guy, but you're really creative writing, so you could go English lit professor on me. I did ask ChatGPT about this, and I wanted to know the opinion of, were there elements of Othello in Brave New World? And the answer was yes, there are quite a bit. Did you pick up on that?
No.
Did you know? Okay, I was like, this sounds like
Othello is
throwing
just
it.
one of the plays I don't know very well. I know some of the basics. But
I know R&J, as I'll call it.
Yeah.
R
and J.
Romeo and Juliet.
Oh yeah.
You looked at me like, what?
Well, my brain is processing a little slowly
Much Ado
right
About
now.
Nothing too.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Well, we're starting to ramble a little.
We are.
Tell me, what about the Othello? What is?
You
don't remember?
No.
They're just our references.
There are references. I don't.
There you go. Somebody could read about
I know a
those
few.
on
Like I said,
Wikipedia.
Much Ado About Nothing, Romeo and Juliet,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. I think my parents know Othello, so that they didn't teach that to us.
Yeah.
It's dying. It's fine. My kids won't even.
Well, Othello has the most famous villain, Iago,
Yep.
who kind of poisons the king's mind and gets him jealous and
So
paranoid.
you already know more.
So yeah, that's the main thing.
That's why I had to ask ChatGPT. I said I asked ChatGPT something. That's what I asked.
I had one more bullet point. I don't know
All
if
right.
it's worth going into too much, but I can't see. We're getting to that
I know,
time.
and it's getting dark.
So Henry Ford, we mentioned this before, he becomes their kind of god.
Yeah.
And which is a strange thing, and it even seems kind of comical. It's like thank Ford instead
Thank
of
Ford.
thank God.
Yeah, that was funny.
But also Ford and Freud
Yeah.
too is sometimes Ford is Freud, and so Sigmund Freud and Henry Ford have become the same person or godlike character.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking about this, and I was asking myself, okay, so if you look at people that have become immortal, in terms of like they're still being talked about hundreds or even thousands of years ago,
Yeah.
I could find artists, writers, politicians, / soldier, warrior type, General Caesar, Homer, Shakespeare.
I had to make the
and
Homer reference for you.
Who else? But no businessmen. Oh,
No.
scientists. Like
But was it because there wasn't
Galileo.
really businesses?
That's what I'm asking. Are 500 years from now, is Elon Musk going to be like one of the, or whoever. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff Bezos. Like, I feel like
Zuck and Elon.
I don't.
Yeah.
I kind of am skeptical that doing business is romantic enough to capture the people's. I don't know. I don't know.
Depends
Maybe
on how rich you get, I think, right?
I mean, but how so? I mean, what is...
I'm kidding.
Okay.
It's like
but, I mean,
the people
maybe
are like, oh, they must know what they're talking about. Like, sure, on certain things, like what they've, based on what they've done, maybe.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people will put many of those folks into higher esteem for their ideas on everything rather than the things that they're really good at.
Yeah, we do that for everybody. Like, if you're
We're such jerks.
You're an expert in one field. Noam Chomsky is the father of linguistics.
Yeah.
But he's also, he's like just decided to become a expert on politics and economy and stuff like that.
And a lot of things that he has no clue. But on language, he's, talking to my wife about this. She's like, yeah, but he's really good. I'm like, at that. That's not.
That's right. You can't question his bona fides on that field. And the other, it's more celebrity, I think.
I would agree.
But,
yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
All right.
Well, this 500 years from now, we'll check back and see how it all worked out for the
hopefully
Zuck
they make a
and,
Soma that
Musk
extends life
and all that.
And then we can just take that.
Yeah, for 500 years.
500 years.
You could become like that, kind of like, I'm bored of living. It's been, like vampires.
Yeah.
They're like, die already.
Yeah.
It's like,
like this podcast today.
We are kind of like winding down, aren't
but
we?
I think we thought I thought I was going to hate this, and I actually, by the end of it, I was like, "All right, we're back." I did. You know what? I enjoyed this. Like I thought it was a good one to. Yeah. So we'll have to figure out what we're going to do next.
Yeah.
We're talking about Into Thin Air.
Yeah, we've been talking about that.
Jurassic Park.
You were traveling in Morocco.
Yeah.
We could do a Paul Bowles story who always writes about Morocco, these horrific short stories.
Let's do that, maybe.
Okay, we could do that.
Yeah.
We could talk about our travels over the summer and then talk about it in terms of literature. And
all right. Thanks, team.
Good to see y'all again, and
hopefully we still have battery on the phone. I'm going to go look.
We'll see.